Hi, I'm Doc Murdock. My wife and I teach the Ojai writing workshop that meets every Thursday, 5:30, Ojai Community Public Library in the community room up there. The workshop is pretty much the same as the workshops we taught at the university, but we offer it as a resource for the community. There's no charge for the workshop, but there is a textbook. The textbook is called How to Write Fiction, Tools and Techniques. The idea of the textbook is to teach people how to build stories step by step. I use examples from some of my novels, but I also wrote 3 demonstration stories that demonstrate different techniques. There's a first-person story, second-person story, and a third-person story. Today I thought I'd read an example from using the first-person story. Part of the design of the book is that after they see how the stories are built, we go over the techniques that we're using, and then we ask them to look for those techniques as they read the example story. For example, we ask them to watch for the locale and the representation of the environment. We watch for them to look for the protagonist's perception of various story events. We try to tell them how to establish a storytelling voice, since this is a first-person story. We try to tell them how to use the supporting cast characters that take the story forward, how to create the world of the story, how to make sure supporting cast characters are described in terms of their role in the story rather than as individuals. We tell them about how to keep the reader in the scene, how to create backstory to give the information to the reader of things that happened before the time period of the story. Watch out for story dilution so you don't add events into the story that don't move it forward. And then finally, how to use symbolism and foreshadowing and techniques like dialogue and eavesdropping to give the reader information. So here's the example story that we give them. This is the first person story. It's called The Darkness of the Catfish Lair. If my little sister would have gone under the mighty Mississippi River during the fall, or even when the winter is just starting to come on and the patches of silvery ice get to spreading across the backwater shallows, they might have been able to see her body down there in the bottom just by looking down into the river using their bottom looker, that tube they got with the glass in the end of it. But in the late springtime, like it is now, the big old Mississippi is in near flood stage and the water gets so muddy you can't even see your hand if you stick it in up to the elbow. When the river gets that muddy, they have to drag for the bodies. This morning, when the sheriff and his deputy were getting ready to start the dragging, I saw them tying some long wires to the back end of their old wooden boat. Then they tied some big old sharp and real mean-looking treble hooks onto the ends of those wires. Now as I'm sitting here on the riverbank watching them go back and forth, first upstream and then back down again, with the sheriff standing up at the back of the boat, keeping the line straight, keeping them from getting tangled up, I try not to think about those sharp treble hooks too much. I don't want to even imagine what those sharp things would do to her soft little body if they did snag her up. Even though she was only a year younger than me, she was a fragile little thing, not tall and gangly like me. Ma always said the two of us are so different it's hard to believe that we both came out of her. But we both do got the same blonde hair, even though mine is getting darker as I get older. Unlike me, she had a sort of softness to her, even though she was little. Softness in her being, too. Maybe that's why Ma thinks she probably went and threw herself in the river. The sheriff told Ma that maybe we ought to hold off the dragging for a bit because she'd only been gone for the one day. But Ma told him she had a hard feeling that her little girl was down under that muddy water. With what Ma thinking Sis is out there drowned in the river, I didn't go to school today. I'd just been sitting there on the riverbank all morning watching them doing the dragging. The sheriff's old boat takes on water some, and the boat motor is pretty weak, so they don't hardly make any progress going upstream against the current. But once they get a ways upstream, they get their boat turned around, they can shut off the motor, so they just float downstream until they get to where the river goes around the Linden's Bend. I guess they figure if she didn't get caught on the river bottom or hung up on that sandbar, she'd be long gone on the river by now, to who knows where. Every time they get their boat floated down to the sandbar, the deputy has to pull the motor starter cord a bunch of times, cussing and cussing, till he finally gets it going again, and then they got to get some punting their way back up here again. While I watch them go dragging back and forth, I pass the time by throwing punched-out clamshells into the water. Them punched-out clamshells are laying all over the place, piles of them, left over from the old Pearl Benton factory that's been closed ever since I was born. Don't know why the factory closed down. No clams left in this river, I guess. Some say them clams got done in by the oil that leaks out of the oil barges that pass by here day and night. Maybe so, maybe not. It could just be that the Benton factory caught so many clams there aren't none left. I stand up and toss them punched-out shells into the water as far as I can. If I throw them hard enough, the holes in them shells make a whistling sound as they fly out over the water. It's kind of a lonesome sound, and it makes me think of how Sis always liked to hum songs to herself while she was out there all alone in the garden doing her hoeing. I get kind of sad remembering her when she was humming like that. I think maybe her humming like that meant she was at least a little bit happy, which she wasn't very often. Another reason I throw them so hard is because I'm feeling kind of sad. I'm feeling kind of mad, too. If she really is out there drowned and they drag her body, well, I'm going to get even madder because maybe I could have done something to prevent it. Maybe I could have played with her more or at least talked to her more. I don't know why I didn't. Because she's a girl, I guess. Other guys don't like much the girls hanging around. But she wasn't much for hanging around anyhow. When she didn't have chores to do, I never saw her being with anybody else. I guess she just liked being alone. Don't know why. A couple of times I saw her coming back from the woods all alone. I wonder why she'd like to go out there in those dark woods all by herself. Funny. At the time I didn't think much about it. Now I'm kind of wondering. The sheriff's boat has been going back and forth for a long time and they haven't snagged her up yet. I wonder how long they'll keep trying. I'm starting to wonder if maybe she's not really out there under that water, even if Ma did get that hard feeling about it. I guess the word is out about what the sheriff's up to because more and more people are showing up downriver from me to watch the dragon. The women folk are gathered together on the little patch of grass where the main street ends at the river, and the men folk are all standing out there on the dock behind Herb's fishing supplies store. Nobody comes near to where I'm sitting. I guess they don't know what to say to me, or maybe the idea of her being out there scares them some. Whatever they're thinking, they stick close together, the women in their group on the grass, the men in their group out on Herb's dock. Nobody's saying much. As the sheriff's boat goes putting by Herb's fishing supplies store, I see a big guy come out to stand on the dock. I stop throwing clamshells to watch him. For a while, he just watches the sheriff's boat going by, and then he goes further out in the sagging old wooden dock to get a closer look. He's got his hand up in the air to shade his eyes from the sun. What's he up to? Why isn't he staying with the other men at the fishing store to talk about the dragon? I decide to walk down there to get a closer look. As I get closer, I realize who the guy is. It's the catfish wrangling champ. Man, I never realized how big and fat he is. But he is, and his fat doesn't seem to stop him from winning the prize every year for dragging out the biggest catfish. Catfish Wrangling Day, if you don't know what it is the one day a year when Herb's Fish and Supplies store gives away a prize to whoever good old boy can hold his breath long enough to get down there, crawl under them muddy banks, and drag a catfish out. But the winner's not the one that drags out the most catfish, it's the one who gets the biggest. Now that I'm 15, I'm old enough to enter the catfish wrangling contest myself, but I'm not going to do it because I tried it a while back and didn't like it one bit. I wanted to be the next catfish wrangling champ myself, so I snuck off to give it a try when nobody was around to see me do it. Right off the bat, I didn't like how pitch dark it was under that riverbank and how hard it was to hold your breath for that long. I especially didn't like how the mud flows all around you and gets all stirred up. And after a while, it gets to feeling like that mud is thick, like thick concrete, and it's going to get thicker and thicker till pretty soon it's going to close off behind you and you'll never get out of there. Down under the bank and all that muddy water, I got to thinking, what if I got trapped in there with them big old ugly catfishes? I know those old catfishes will eat you as soon as you're dead because my daddy told me so. My daddy told me the trick to catch catfish is to take a big breath and hold it while you crawl under the bank, feeling with your hands for a big old lazy catfish, and then they'll be just lying under there doing nothing. He said you just take a big breath, and when you get hold of one of those fellows, you give him your whole arm and he'll bite it. He said that big old catfish won't chew on your arm. He'll just clamp down on it real hard and hold on. That's when you're supposed to pull him out. Ask him what happens if the catfish is too big and you can't pull him out. He laughed and said, well, then the fish eats you, because he ain't never going to let go of your arm, that's for damn sure. Anyhow, trying it for myself made me appreciate how good catfish rambling shank must be to be able to pull out the biggest catfish every single year. I've been going to catfish wrangling day ever since I was 5. That was the first time my daddy let me go along. He entered the contest that year because the prize was a brand new Winchester Model 12 shotgun. My daddy said we'd eat real good on them catfish for a while, even if he didn't win the shotgun. He said he wanted to win the gun so he could use it to shoot squirrels for us to eat, because that Model 12 was accurate as hell and squirrels weren't so bad to eat if you're careful and don't bite down too hard on hit one of them shotgun pellets and maybe break a tooth or something. But he didn't win, and pretty soon after that, he took off. My ma told me I was almost 6 when he took off for California, and I got mad because I even cried some in my room while Ma was out there in the kitchen yelling at him. She said he was a son of a bitch for not even sticking around to wait till my 6-year birthday party. After he and Ma got finished yelling at each other, he came into my room and kneeled down in front of me to tell me he was real sorry, but he had to go now because he'd been lucky to catch a good ride in a big truck that was going to take him all the way out to California. He told me he'd bring me out there. He'd bring all of us out there as soon as he found a job, but he never did send for us. He didn't even write to us or nothing. Ma says he's surely 6 feet under by now, probably shot dead in one of those damn poker games he liked so much. Or maybe he just found somebody he liked better than us. Thinking about it now, as if he is still alive, I think it's a real shame that he won't ever know what happened to his little girl. She was hardly more than a baby when he left. Ma says after all these years I might as well forget about him, and I've tried, but I can't do it. By the time I get close to the dock, the catfish wrangling champ is wading into the river. He's already got his pants off, and he's pulled off his shirt and hangs it over the edge of the dock. Man, he's got a big belly. It hangs out way over the waist of his long underwear. He wades in deeper and deeper. When he's clear up to the shoulders, he puts some kind of metal clamp on his nose, takes one last look at the group back on the dock, and starts to swim out. He keeps on swimming till he's out past the end of the dock, and that's when the strong current starts to pull him downstream. He doesn't even try to fight it. He just takes in a big breath and ducks down under the water. I know right away what he's going to do. He's going to go down and find Sis on the bottom of that big old river. Men hurry out onto the dock to watch. He's going to go down and get her, says one old dried-up guy. Another old guy says, by God, he can probably do her too if he sets his mind to it. But a third old guy says, oh, hell, she's probably washed all the way down to Keysburg by now, maybe even clear down to Kowaka. He won't hide nor hair of her. If Sis is out there under that water, I'm hoping the catfish wrangler really can find her. I mean, if he can crawl into them muddy banks and hold his breath for long enough to get a hold of a big old catfish and drag it out, maybe he might be able to go down at the bottom of the river and get a hold of my little sister. Even though it would mean she's really dead, it'd be better than the sheriff snagging her with one of those terrible sharp hooks. I wait to see how long it'll be before he comes up. None of the men are talking. One of them mumbles something I don't catch. I look at their faces. They seem worried. Are they thinking he's been under the water too long? I've seen the catfish wrangler hold his breath longer than that. Every year he stays down under the muddy banks until he finds the biggest catfish, no matter how long it takes. Pretty soon, one of the old men scratches his gray beard and says, nobody can hold their breath that long. Another man says he doesn't have a beard, but he shakes his finger at the first guy and says, sure he can do her. You just wait and see. We all wait for him to come back up. I keep on reminding myself that this is the man that is the catfish wrangling champ. He can hold his breath like almost forever. He'll come back up soon, and maybe he'll have Sis in his arms. But he doesn't come up. I don't know how much time has passed, but I'm starting to think it's been too long for a human person to be holding their breath, even if he is the catfish wrangling champ. Everybody's looking at each other like they can't believe what's happening. It's strange, but nobody says anything. They don't even seem to want to look at each other. The terrible silence continues until the sheriff's boat goes putting by. Then all of the men start yelling and waving. The deputy pulls the boat in next to the dock and shuts off the motor. What the hell's the matter with you people? What's all the yelling about? The old men are all excited and pointing out towards the river, all of them talking at once, telling the sheriff about the catfish wrangler champ who I went down to look for the girl and he never came back up. The sheriff turns to look where they're pointing, shakes his head. Damn. Why'd he have to go and do a fool thing like that? He turns to his deputy and says, well, we better go get him before he ends up way downstream. The deputy starts up the motor and swings his boat. Downstream, the boat is moving fast with the sheriff standing up in the back, dragging the lines, working the drag lines. It isn't long before the sheriff yells something, and the deputy shuts off the motor. The sheriff starts pulling at one of the wires. Whatever he's caught, it looks heavy. The deputy turns the boat around and points it upstream. He throttles down the motor till the boat is all but standing still. Then they're back at the back of the boat, pulling on that wire. Pretty soon they get a hold of something that looks like a big leg. I can see the leg has got one of them terrible big hooks stuck right into it. Doesn't take long before they get a hold of the other leg and pull the body up into the boat. Sure enough, it's the catfish wrangling champ. And it looks like he's all tangled up in fish lines that have lots of little hooks all along them. Must be them illegal trot lines people throw out to catch bullheads. Once they get the catfish wrangler back in the boat, I can see that his eyes are open and he's staring up the sky. He's got that metal clip on his nose, and he's got one of them suckerfish attached to his big belly. The sheriff tears off the suckerfish and cracks it on the side of the boat to kill it, throws the dead fish back in the water, and then the deputy starts the motor, speeds it up, and they're coming back up again. As they come putting back up towards the dock, all the men crowd around. I can see they're going to be the rest of the day taking care of the catfish wrangler's body. I guess they forgot all about finding my little sister. So I head home to tell Ma they didn't find her. As I go, I kick at pebbles in the road, raising up dust, and thinking about why the sheriff didn't find her, and she didn't get tangled up in any of those illegal trot lines, so maybe Ma's wrong. Maybe my little sister isn't at the bottom of that big old river after all. Maybe she just left this dumb town. Maybe she might have even gone out there to California to find Daddy. I seen the way some men look at her now that she started to fill out under that thin old dress she always wears. Maybe some man took a liking to her and offered to give her a ride all the way out to California. Hell, maybe by now she's halfway out there. As I walk, I'm thinking maybe I should do that too. I mean, like one of these days I could just up and disappear, and then they'd be out there dragging the river for me. But the joke would be on them, because I wouldn't be down there under that water getting net by them catfish. I'd be long, long gone on my way to California.